I think we have to tone down the language a little bit.
You may. I won't be.
Oh, okay.
I won't be toning down my language. I'm furious about it. You are listening to the Why Smart Women podcast, the podcast that helps smart women work out why we repeatedly make the wrong decisions and how to make better ones. From relationships, career choices, finances, to faux fur jackets and kale smoothies. Every moment of every day, we're making decisions. Let's make them good ones. I'm your host, Annie McCubbin, and as a woman of a certain age, I've made my own share of really bad decisions. Not my husband. I don't mean him, though. I did go through some shockers to find him. And I wish this podcast had been around to save me from myself. This podcast will give you insights into the working of your own brain, which will blow your mind. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording, and you are listening on this day. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Well, hello, smart women, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Why Smart Women podcast. Last week, two very important things happened in our lives. One was that Trump was re-elected as President of the United States, which may seem like an odd thing to mention considering that we are in Australia and he's in America. But for us here in Australia, it is a very large, impactful and disturbing occurrence. And secondly, David and I sold our house and bought something else. But we're not going to talk about that this week because we thought while the whole Trump disaster is still so fresh in our minds, we thought we'd discuss that. And then next week, we'll get back to how David and Annie sold their house and bought another one all in the one day. Anyway, for anybody who's listening who happens to be a Trump supporter, I'm sorry about what we're about to discuss. But there you have it. You don't have to listen. But if you did want to listen, it might challenge some of your deeply held beliefs about him. So first of all, America made a decision to elect a felon over a prosecutor. Now, why they did this is complicated and deeply depressing, but there it is. And David and I are going to talk about it, aren't we, David?
Yeah, look, we are. And I guess I'm trying to sit in a place where I don't want to rummage around too much into the idea that it's a disaster. I think
it is, though.
There's got to be a reframe, and I think the first thing that I wanted to say was I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake.
You really did.
I did. I made a public mistake. When before Harris was even pushed into the position of being the candidate, I was saying to my friends when there was all the consternation about Joe Biden, I mean, surely it is time for a woman to be the President of the United States. And I was thinking, this has got to be different from the disappointment of Hillary Clinton's campaign. I mean, we've had a Trump presidency, so we kind of know a bit what he was like. We've had the whole Me Too thing happen. I thought there were so many factors that were pointing towards going forward, progress, not going back. And I was absolutely wrong.
In fact, David, after we'd seen Harris's launch at the Democratic convention, David made a very big post that said, "I'm calling it." And that was for a Harris win. And what we're going to do as we discuss all this is look into the cognitive biases that affect our thinking. Because what was the cognitive bias, David, that affected your thinking?
Oh, look, I think this probably comes along as optimism bias.
It's confirmation bias.
It's confirmation bias.
It's primarily confirmation bias, and of course we know that confirmation bias is where you cherry pick the environment, cherry pick the data that is available to you, and then come up with a conclusion that supports what you already think. But you know what else it is? It's also the availability bias, because we live in a bubble. we all live in a bubble. And what was coming through our television set, right, was pro-democratic rhetoric, because we tune into Stephen Colbert and we listen to
Seth Meyers and Jimmy Kimmel and Brian Taylor Cohen and Tim Miller from the Bulwark, and the Midas Touch Network, and I mean, look, this is
Politico. I listen to Politico.
This is the danger of your YouTube algorithm.
Yeah, that's right.
It kind of worked out that this is the stuff that I wanted to look at, and I looked at it, and I just saw, again, you're right, availability and confirmation.
Yeah.
I can't fault the Harris campaign. I thought she came out of the blocks brilliantly. You know, I thought her first speech as prospective candidate was absolutely fantastic. The Democratic convention was amazing.
Agree.
They had Dick Cheney, Harrison Ford, and who was Luke Skywalker? Mark Hamill, all endorsing Harris. You know, Darth Vader.
Well, Liz Cheney, I mean, Dick Cheney's daughter, she was also. I mean, there were very high-profile Republicans supporting her,
Raffensperger,
because they knew that Trump is a maniac.
The chief of staff. I think we have to tone down the language a little bit.
You may. I won't be.
Oh, okay.
I won't be toning down my language. I'm furious about it.
I mean, we can ask: is he the best option for the people of the United States?
Well, clearly not.
It's clear to us, but it wasn't clear to the 80 million voters that voted for him.
Of course, the other thing that you're looking at is the deep level of disengagement with American voters. A lot of people did not either do a postal vote or get up out of bed on that Tuesday morning and go and cast their vote.
Is that right? People didn't vote?
It was not compulsory.
I know it's not compulsory.
Of course they didn't vote.
The Dems had been banging on about, get your voting plan sorted out and, vote together. And there are all these, videos of people in large crowds, marching down to the polling centres together.
But again, that's just the availability bias.
Okay,
that's what we're looking at.
They didn't actually get out the vote.
That's correct.
No.
I mean, and this comes down to the fact of whether or not compulsory voting is a good thing. And of course it is. Of course it is, because it means that people's inertia, they just don't have the chance to be inert about it. They actually have to do something about it, which means they would have got up out of bed and voted for someone. But unfortunately, because of the non-compulsory voting, they just didn't. So you don't have the numbers voting that should vote. And then you've got people's brains influenced by statements, by simplistic, large, simple statements. And we know, when David will talk about that now, we know that these large emotional statements have more cut through because they're just simply easier to understand, and that's the sad truth. Yeah,
2020 hindsight. I should say also that as soon as we discovered that the election was going to go to the Republican Party instead of the Democrats, I couldn't bear to watch any of the channels that I had been watching. So I have indeed been in a media and a social media blackout when it comes to the election. So the opinions that I'm about to share about what happened, why it happened, and what went right for one party and what went wrong for the other, are not informed by anybody else's post-mortem. So should I just launch into this and sort of make a few comments for discussion?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, the first one was that the election wasn't decided on a rational basis. It was purely decided on emotion.
And that is the way of the human brain. And that is what myself and every other skeptic on the planet, that is what we're trying to communicate to other people, is that most of our decisions all are emotional. And unless we are schooled in critical thinking, we are going to make decisions that arise out of the limbic system part of the brain and post-rationalize them. And when you're in front of a charismatic person, and whether you like him or not, Trump is charismatic.
Well, he's got his Hollywood star.
Yeah.
Clearly, he has power through the media. He has charisma.
Yeah, clearly. And what he does with that charisma is what, David? The
Okay.
3-card trick.
Yeah, exactly. So look, I did a TEDx talk earlier this year where I described something that I call artificial integrity. And that's when someone projects that they are intrinsically motivated to serve you or the electorate, when in fact their actions serve themselves. And the way that it works is that the person who uses this strategy relies on delivering 3 psychological actions. Now, psychological actions are different to physical actions. Physical actions you can see. Psychological actions you can't see. It's what people receive from a speech, from a word, from an image.
And this idea of psychological actions harkens back to our careers as actors.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, as actors we learn that a character is the sum total of the actions that they play. Some of those actions are physical, some of them are psychological, but this is how human beings operate. In order to get what we want from other people, we play psychological actions. Sometimes
they're invisible though, right?
They're invisible.
You can't see them.
You can't.
So play one on me now.
Okay, welcome, Annie. It's great to see you.
Oh, thank you so much, David, for welcoming me onto my own podcast.
Yeah, exactly. What are you wearing?
What do you mean, what am I wearing?
Is that what's with the nanogenes?
Oh my God,
Have
so
you given
rude.
up?
So given up.
Yeah, because it's a podcast.
Also, because we were looking at furniture yesterday, just to digress, talking about giving up. And because we are moving, which we'll get onto next week, but we are moving. And of course, I've had a recliner now for 20 years and I want to replicate that. And my friends are like, you cannot have a lounge that reclines because it's like giving up a nana. And I'm like, I don't care. I am having that recliner lounge.
Oh,
and I don't care.
You're such a
And
rebel.
I'm going to wear nana jeans in the recliner lounge.
Okay. So what's Annie doing at the moment? She's asserting her right. So she's what's she doing? She's
Yeah, what is that action that I'm playing?
I am doing this. You're defying us.
I'm playing the action to defy.
To defy. And I feel defied.
Yeah. And what action were you playing when you said, what's with the nanogenes?
What's with the nanogenes? Well, that would be to...
Action to diminish.
No, to tease.
To tease, action to tease.
Yeah,
you get it? Do you get that, listeners? So, and this is what goes wrong with communication generally, is people think that it's the words that you say that make the difference. Now, it's partially the words, and we certainly can't diminish their importance, but it's also what is driving the words and the emotional hook in the words. Yep.
That's right. And look, if ever you have been excited by something or amused by something or frightened by something or destabilized by something or encouraged by something, that is because either the environment or a person in that environment has been playing psychological actions on you. Now, the 3 psychological actions that were core to the Trump campaign, number 1 was to destabilize. It probably synthesized into they're eating the dogs. That whole thing about how immigrants are bad, other countries are emptying out their asylums, they're sending us the criminals, we have open borders. This is all about destabilizing people, worrying people, frightening people.
And that is very much in the playbook, is it not, of dictators?
Yeah.
Everybody, if you are a dictator, then what you need to do is to other somebody.
That's right.
And so we in this, we're very tribally brained. So we in this tribe, we are not homogenous. We are deeply varied, interesting, moral people. Them over there, the others, they are of one mind, right? And that one mind is generally, evil. So it's just the classic scapegoating, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's what's pernicious about it is it doesn't have to be terribly sophisticated.
No, well, it wasn't sophisticated.
No. The Haitian immigrants in Springfield are eating the dogs. You should be worried about that. You should be destabilized by that.
And interestingly enough, no matter how much the residents and the mayor and all the comedians, the very high-profile comedians, undermined that particular message,
it was not the truth.
It got through.
Yep.
So the truth in this regard there was absolutely no respect for the truth. But you see, what people like is when it's somebody else's fault. So it's somebody else's fault that we're economically stressed, we can't get a job, we're not getting paid enough, And so what Trump's campaign successfully did was blame the other. And it is so dangerous and so terrible and so evil.
Well, I mean, it is right out of the... I mean, it's exactly what Adolf Hitler did in the 1930s, blaming the Jews.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how he took power, and then he executed the Holocaust.
We know we've just lost the argument because we've mentioned Hitler, but in this regard, it is sort of true. It's sort of true. It's true.
Okay, so that's the first psychological action that one plays with artificial integrity.
Which is what? Tell me again.
Destabilise. You know, the world's a dangerous place.
Yeah.
You know, they're coming to eat your groodle. You know,
they're coming to eat your groodle, and everything. This country, it's a failed nation.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a failed nation. Quick, fix it.
Yeah, the Harris campaign really invested in the optimism. You know, we're going forward. We're going to be progressive. You know, this is the kind of America that we want to be. And Trump didn't really bother with that. It was all about, you know, the company's going to hell. It's garbage, it's terrible. And then we move to the second psychological action, that is, I and I alone can fix this. I and I alone can protect you. And that's a reassuring message. And that's what the strongman politician does. Destabilizes people and then says, I have the strength, the power to fix this. I am the only one. And, you know, once again, we saw this being played out all throughout the year. And yes, my optimism bias, thinking, oh, look, really, we can't be that silly. But no, unfortunately, the theory's right. Rationale gets kicked into the gutter and the emotions hold sway.
Belief comes first, reason comes second. So people, people want to believe that he is one of them, that Trump's holding up his Bible, which has probably got misprints in it, is actually one of them. And, of course, they're anti-elitism, right, his followers, because he's co-opted the blue-collar workers. They want to believe that he is one of them, and he's just a New York billionaire. But somehow, and maybe that was partially maybe the J.D. Vance story. So J.D. Vance, the Vice, who's arguably as vile or viler than Trump.
Annie.
What? Well, I'm telling the truth. It's my podcast. I don't have to stand here and try and vanilla up my language. They're awful people. And they are. And J.D. Vance with his hillbilly elegy, you know, that anybody, and this is the most infuriating thing, this idea of the American dream that anybody who works hard enough can come up from the gutter and then be a hedge fund broker and be a millionaire. It's all attitude. And this idea that it's all attitude as opposed to the fact that it's structural in the way that the society is organised is pernicious and dangerous and wrong. Did you want to say the third thing?
Well, okay. So
the first thing is what?
The first thing is to destabilise people. You know, our America's going to hell, and there are bad people who want to come and they want to hurt you.
Yeah, second.
The second action is to reassure you, but I and I alone can protect you.
Perfect.
You know, I'm made of the right stuff. I'm just like you. You know, I'm not like them.
That's right.
I'm not like them. I'm not like the Dems. I'm not like, you know, the bad people. I and I alone can protect you. Then the third action that you play is to coerce. The only way I can protect you is if you put me back in the White House. The only way I can protect you is if you vote for me. And it's only fair that you do that because, well, I'm doing all of this for you. You know, I took a bullet, you know, 2 assassination attempts.
I must confess that day that he got shot, I was like, this is not going to go well because he looked heroic, right?
This strategy of first destabilise, then reassure, then coerce, it works best in environments of high drama. And that was my concern. As I was watching the Colberts and the Seth Meyers and the Jimmy Kimmels getting stuck in and gleefully getting stuck in, you know.
Well, just because we've got some people that people listen to this podcast all over the world.
Okay.
So who are those people you're talking about?
Yeah, these are the late night talk show hosts
from America.
Yeah, fundamentally, Jon Stewart as well, and all the other people on the Daily Show. They are politically engaged comedians, and goodness gracious me, there was a lot of comedy available in looking at all the missteps and miscalculations that appeared to be coming out of the Trump campaign.
And they will be. They've now got 4 more years of material. So even though they'll be devastated that he's been elected, they've got 4 more years of, I don't know, trying to poke. Well,
No, well, that's
he's got there's so much fodder in Trump, right?
Well, this is the thing. Whenever you attack the person who is using artificial integrity, they just become stronger. Because
is that why you want me to be nice about him?
Well,
It's too late now. I don't have to be.
I know, and you're not going to be part of the voting bloc next time anyway.
No, wish I could have.
But I will say something. I do think that there's a warning in this for Australia.
Yeah, well, they're saying now that the Libs are now that Dutton's going to start looking at the Trump playbook.
Yep.
And that means, everybody out there, that means that we will start to see rhetoric where somebody is to blame, and it's probably going to be migrants, and it's disgraceful. Leave the migrants alone.
Okay.
They are the backbone of our country.
I think the most useful takeaway. I do think that our interest in what happened in that election is not misplaced.
I agree.
Because Australia follows the United States into battle, be it Korea, Vietnam, Iraq. We are tethered to them, and goodness knows we suffered dreadfully economically because of the last trade war that Trump launched on China. I think we're right to feel that this does influence us in some way, but our capacity to influence it back is fairly limited. I think that the best thing that we can do is work to keep the temperature down in all of these contexts. I mean, obviously, the American elections, done and dusted. The Australian elections, the next time it's happening here, I think that the best thing to get the very best outcome, an outcome that is sensible and that is wise and that is based on truth, will be one where there's less drama.
I know you think that. Anyway, back to me.
Oh.
So, back to me. So,
no, but could you see that the more people attacked Trump, the more people attacked Trump, what appears to have happened is that those who've supported him just became
more emboldened.
And
more defensive of him.
And they got up to vote.
Yeah.
That was the first red flag that came out of the early voting, and that is that the Republicans were voting in larger numbers than the Democrats.
No, he just said that. That wasn't true.
No, it was true.
Was that true?
Yeah. It was definitely true. That was one of the.
Also, what about this classic? That all that business about they're going to steal the election, they're going to steal it. And then when he won, where did that particular idea go? Gone. No one was talking about. And notice how Harris, reasonable, Democratic Harris, just passed the baton on. There was no drama. It was a peaceful transfer of power because she's a reasonable human being. But of course, reasonable isn't everything. And if I can just quote my very good friend Lucinda Armour, whose opinion letter to the Sydney Morning Herald was the most respected. And just the points that she made, I thought, were so salient on how it happened. And
read it to us.
I'm not going to. I'll just talk.
Okay.
So online influencers, and we know how absolutely one was online influencers. Right-wing, heavy-hitting online influencers.
Seth Rogen.
Joe Rogan.
Oh
my God, Seth Rogen, not Seth Rogen.
Oh, the other one.
Yeah. They're very, very, very influential. The Elon Musks of this world. So he's a billionaire, right? I noticed that Gina Reinhart came out saying what a wonderful resurgence it was of Trump as well. Blah. Anyway, so Elon Musk, another billionaire with nothing to lose that's looking for the next shiny toy, backing Trump. I mean, and the lack of recognition in the voters, in the minds of the voters, is just astonishing, because I don't know that the MAGA voters, the Make America Great Again voters, were the main problem. I think, and even after they're eating the dogs and eating the cats statement, I think Latino voters, especially male Latino voters, and I don't mean to talk to them like they're a monolith. I know that there's a variety of countries that they come from, but there is something in it, and Lucinda talks about this, that when you have second-generation immigrants, it's very easy to trigger them into this is our country now, you'd better come in the right way.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we think that was part of it, and I would totally agree with that.
We did it hard, and therefore
They have to do it hard, even though it was a lie. This notion of the misogyny that ran through the entire campaign, they would rather any day have a white man, even if he's in his late 70s and probably on the edge of dementing, than a black woman or any woman. So that deep, depressing sort of ream of misogyny that runs through the community. And they think that there was quite a big black male vote towards Trump, and so you'd have to look at what was driving that thinking.
I mean, I remember after 2016 and Hillary Clinton lost, friends of ours from the United States said, look, you need to understand how mistrusted the Clintons are by so many Americans. That there was a real animosity to the Clinton brand, and that contributed to her loss. And, back in my days of delusion, I thought that unencumbered by that,
that she'd be fine.
But completely underestimated what I think is the level of misogyny. And look, there were these moments when Harris herself, when Michelle Obama, when she spoke on behalf of Harris, they sort of they kind of transformed a little bit into that straight talking American African American woman matriarch, like, you go girl, and
what are you saying about that?
You get yourself out. Well, I just wonder whether emotionally that triggered some of the young black gentlemen, and they went, well, don't talk to me like that,
Yeah, it could easily be, and I think the other thing
Mum's
is,
had enough power. I'm gonna take it back off her.
Yeah, and also I just think women, especially in the Bible Belt. I mean, the fact that he was selling Bibles, Trump Bibles, the fact that he has all those felonies against him, the fact that he's a convicted rapist made absolutely no difference to the Christian vote. I'm not saying no difference, but clearly the Bible Belt still backed him. That is an astonishing display of confirmation bias. I have decided I'm only going to listen to the things about him that collide with my own beliefs about Jesus and Christianity, and I'm just going to absolutely discard. I mean, it didn't even hit the frame, the reality of who he is. And I wonder if there is something in there about women, especially with the notion of headship, as we know, that's very, very prevalent in those evangelical communities, that the male is the head of the family and is in charge of decision making. Don't you try that, David. That's probably not going to work with me. What? You making decisions and being the male head of the family. Did you split off then? Were you not listening to me?
No, I was listening. I was imagining what that might look like.
Yeah, it wouldn't be good, would it?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know. It wouldn't go well. The notion that a woman is the head of something, I think, is antithetical to a lot of women. It's like, at the head of the table there needs to be a male. And when he came out with that, or you decided you do want to be in charge?
Well, no. I was just going to say. So what you're saying is that the gender bias was expressed in a lot of women and a lot of Christian white women. You're saying?
I'm saying,
were those the numbers this time? Did they?
Well,
I mean, yeah. I know that when college-educated white women
that's what we
deserted
thought
Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, that's what we were hoping for. They thought that older women. Remember, we were a bit hysterical. We thought that older women was going to get us over the line, and it wasn't what happened. There's just all these elements, I think, that came into play that just pretty much knocked our socks off. And now, the people that were lied to about the state of the economy and what he was going to do to fix it are now going to see the reality of what it's like.
Yeah, goodness gracious!
I mean, and the one of the big things, and as any listeners who listen to this regularly know, I'm a paid up member of the Australian Skeptics, and I'm plugged into Skeptics And a skeptic is simply someone who seeks the evidence. I'm plugged into skeptics from all over the world. And now you've distracted me. What are you doing? David's now stopped and is now looking at beds.
No, I'm not.
You were looking at beds because we need a new bed to move into our house. And now I was going to say something really intelligent. I've got it. I'm back.
What I was going to do is to say that Skepticon 2024, which is the 40th Australian Skeptics National Convention.
Yeah, and I'm speaking at it.
Is actually going to be in a couple of weeks, November 23rd and 24th, Saturday and Sunday, a fantastic weekend of brilliant presentations and things that will stretch your mind in extraordinary ways. Look up skepticon.org.au and yes.
Thank you for that plug, Dave. That's very, very, very kind. I'll be speaking. Carl Krzyzewski, they'll be really interesting speakers.
Yep.
Really, really good.
Robin Williams.
Yep, really good speakers, including me. I'll be great. And what I'll be talking about on the Skepticon conference is the bias that we have to use alternate medicine because it comes under the banner of natural in our brains. So we are more likely to use a supplement or a vitamin or go to a naturopath or go to a homeopath because in our minds they come under the banner of natural, whereas a doctor comes under the banner of not natural. And then what happens is, and I am about to get back to the election, that then what happens is there's this sort of, and this is especially online, this story, this narrative, this very persuasive story of don't take pharmaceuticals, don't go to your doctor, go to a natural, go to somebody natural, have some Himalayan salt, pink salt, apparently that you'd have to actually take 7 kilos of it to get the minerals out of. But anyway, and the thing is that natural medicine, supplements, vitamins, tinctures are not tested. They do not go through any testing and there's no body that oversees them. So they can pretty much put anything in them. And often they interact badly with medicines. So they're either benign or they interact badly, or they can actually do damage to you because of this notion of not being tested. So RFK is about to be appointed, minister, what do they call it over there?
But is he?
Well, will he be?
Yeah,
You describe who he is.
Well, I mean, this is the thing about
scary.
The Trump appointees is he puts, he gets to choose who heads up these particular departments. And the department that takes care of health, so I guess it's the Food and Drug Administration.
That's the FDA. It's not that.
The Environmental
I don't know. Anyway, he's going to be
like the health minister.
He's going to be the health minister.
RFK is likely to be the new health minister.
Yeah, and he's a member of the Kennedy family, right?
Yeah.
And he carries that sort of illustrious name, but he's a lunatic. So he's a rabid anti-vaxxer, which is going to be a disaster, because as we know, COVID is still knocking people flat. And interesting data about COVID as well, interesting and sort of awful, is it kills more men than women. And not because of anything they do, it's just that in the gene it actually affects men more than women. So he's anti-vax, which is an absolute disaster, but also he's talking about taking fluoride out of the water. Because apparently it's damaging. Fluoride's a naturally occurring substance, so that's not right. I don't know how he's going to do that. Maybe with a big straw. Maybe he's going to stand around with a straw and try and suck the fluoride out of the water. But it's very, very dangerous if the Trump administration starts to move towards untested, invalid, conspiracy thinking measures that are followed by people like RFK, because as we know, if we can't move forward with science, we are lost.
Wow.
And really, really dangerous.
The great American experiment of democracy will rumble on, and we will find out what happens.
Oh, are you ending this? You don't get to end
No,
this.
I'm not ending it.
Well,
but
it sounds like an end.
Well, it was just a little bit of a segue.
You've got that endy sound.
Okay, so maybe this is the last thing that I was going to say.
All right, go on.
Why does it matter? Why do
I knew you had that endy sound. You've taken over. You want headship, don't you?
I know that you're going to have the last word, so I thought I'd just slip this in. I do think it's important to watch these dynamics because they are repeated at every level. You know, we can see it happening in the United States, and there is a concern that a similar campaign that minimises truth, maximises drama and divisive drama could lead to a poor result here in Australia. But it doesn't just happen at the level of politics. It happens in business that people use this artificial integrity strategy. You know, that
Go on.
Isn't it worth discussing?
Yeah, it is. Go on.
Okay, so you know, business leaders who over egg the dangers, and also have an I and I alone can protect us kind of way. You know, it's got to be my way or the highway, and so you must support me, and that's at
pretty
the heart
prevalent, isn't it?
It's at the heart of a lot of toxic cultures that tend to worship the boss, thereby reducing the collective intelligence that is, you know, that's in the organisation. But this artificial integrity, it also happens in personal relationships. You know, men who say to women, you know, you're a danger to yourself. I'm the only one who can look after you, and you have to tell me exactly where you are and what you are doing. It is also another manifestation of it, which brings me back to this idea of being sensitive to psychological action. We can't see it as clearly as we see physical action, but if we see psychological action where people are destabilizing, you know, fraudulently reassuring and then coercing support, then we've got a red flag. And unfortunately, the instinct to make a bit of drama about it is actually the worst thing that we can do. If we observe it happening, cut the drama, disarm the story, and I think that that's how we get better outcomes.
Well, all that requires critical thinking.
100%.
Nobody is going to do anything while they're still under the thrall of the emotional part of their brains. And unfortunately, critical thinking is not taught in our schools. And even when I go about my day or give a talk about it, people actually say to me, what is critical thinking? Because it's unfortunately not part of our lexicon, and man, does it need to be. So
what can people do to keep in touch with the possibilities of critical thinking?
Read my books.
Oh.
Listen to this podcast.
Oh, there you go.
Why Smart Women Make Bad Decisions. Why Smart Women Buy the Lies. I wrote them because I get so disturbed by the fact that people can say anything and then people go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. You know, and you've got angry, disenfranchised people like American male voters who are having a rubbish time. Of course they're going to go, yeah, I want this guy because he's going to fix my life. Unfortunately, he's not. So that's us on the Trump thing, and a little bit on me in the recliner lounge and the Nana lounge, and we will talk more about how we wrapped up our lives in our current abode in the next couple of weeks. Thank you very much, David. And it is really, really good to hear David's thoughts on artificial integrity, because it was a very, very good TED Talk, and it is very, very salient. We are very easily manipulated by this 3-card trick. So thank you for talking about that. That's great. And very,
you're welcome.
Very pertinent.
Now, would you like me to bring you some Bovril before your Nana nap?
Oh, my God, Bovril.
Bovril, is that
actually, do you know what though, listeners? I am currently wearing slippers. I'm quite tired because we've been packing up the house and we've been frantic.
I'll make you a cup of tea.
Thank you. Thank you, it would be great. And thank you to Lucinda Armour for her intelligent analysis and her thoughts on why Trump won the election. So thank you so much for... Don't yawn. You yawned.
Who would have known that I yawned if you hadn't called it out then?
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Okay.
Cut the drama, Annie.
Shut up, David. So thank you so much for tuning in, listeners. We hope that was interesting. And just remember that these flaws in our thinking don't just happen on a large scale. The flaws in all our thinking is happening every moment of every day, in every decision that you make, to start to become aware of why you do what you do is a critical part of developing as a human being. Okay, lovely. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are in the world. See you next week. Bye.
It's going to be okay.
Bye. Thanks, David. He had to have the last word. He's some mail. Bye. Thanks for tuning into Why Smart Women with me, Annie McCubbin. I hope today's episode has ignited your curiosity and left you feeling inspired by my anti-motivational style. Join me next time as we continue to unravel the fascinating layers of our brains and develop ways to sort out the fact from the fiction and the over 6,000 thoughts we have in the course of every day. Remember, intelligence isn't enough. You can be as smart as paint, but it's not just about what you know, it's about how you think. And in all this talk of whether or not you can trust your gut, if you ever feel unsafe, whether it's in the street, at work, in a car park, in a bar, or in your own home, please respect that gut feeling. Staying safe needs to be our primary objective. We can build better lives, but we have to stay safe to do that. And don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the podcast and share it with your fellow smart women and allies. Together, we're hopefully reshaping the narrative around women and making better decisions. So until next time, stay sharp, stay savvy, and keep your critical thinking hat shiny. This is Annie McCubbin signing off from Why Smart Women. See you later. This episode was produced by Harrison Hess. It was executive produced and written by me, Annie McCubbin.